The small town of Millfield was known for its quaint charm and friendly residents, but there was one place in town that everyone avoided. The old abandoned circus that had been left to rot on the outskirts of town was said to be haunted by the spirits of the performers who had died there many years ago. Despite the warnings, a group of teenagers decided to explore the abandoned circus one night. As they made their way through the dark and crumbling tents, they stumbled upon an old dressing room that was still intact. Inside, they found an old makeup mirror covered in dust and cobwebs. As one of the girls picked it up, she couldn't help but feel drawn to its eerie reflection. As she stared into the mirror, she saw something moving in the darkness behind her. She turned around, but there was nothing there. Feeling uneasy, the group quickly left the dressing room and continued their exploration. But as they made their way through the circus, they began to feel like they were being watched. The air grew colder, and the sounds of creaking metal and ghostly whispers filled the night. Finally, they stumbled upon a strange room at the center of the circus. The room was filled with mirrors of all shapes and sizes, each one reflecting a different image of the group. But as they looked closer, they realized that the images were distorted and twisted, showing them in grotesque and horrifying ways. Suddenly, the room began to spin, and the group felt themselves being pulled into the mirrors. They screamed and clawed at the walls, but there was no escape. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The group found themselves standing in a strange and eerie version of the circus, one that was populated by twisted and distorted versions of the performers who had once called it home. The group realized that they had been transported into a world of nightmares, where every fear and phobia was made real. As they stumbled through the twisted circus, they encountered the spirits of the performers who had died there. The spirits were not friendly, and they seemed to take pleasure in torturing the group with their worst fears. One by one, the group fell victim to the horrors of the twisted circus. Some were devoured by grotesque clown monsters, while others were trapped in endless mazes of mirrors, never to be seen again. Finally, only one member of the group remained. She was determined to find a way out of the twisted circus and back to the real world. She searched high and low, but the exits were all blocked or impossible to reach. And then, she remembered the makeup mirror. She searched through her bag and found it, still covered in dust and cobwebs. She held it up to her face and stared into its eerie reflection. And then, she saw something that gave her hope. In the reflection, she saw a faint glimmer of light. She realized that it was the real world, waiting for her just beyond the twisted reflection. She reached out and grabbed the glimmer of light, and then pulled herself through the mirror. She stumbled back into the real world, shaking and covered in sweat. The old abandoned circus was gone, replaced by an empty field. She looked around, but the rest of the group was nowhere to be seen. Years later, the girl returned to Millfield and went back to the site of the old circus. She found the makeup mirror still sitting in the dressing room, covered in dust and cobwebs. She picked it up and stared into its eerie reflection, and she could feel the pull of the twisted circus once again. She knew that she had to destroy the mirror, to ensure that no one else would fall victim to its twisted power. But as she held the mirror in her hands, she felt the spirits of the performers reaching out to her. She could hear their whispers, urging her to join them in the twisted circus, promising her a world of endless nightmares and terror. She tried to resist, but she could feel the mirror's power growing stronger. She could feel herself being pulled into its eerie reflection, into the twisted world of the haunted circus. In a moment of desperation, she smashed the mirror on the ground. The shards of glass flew in every direction, cutting her hands and face. But as the last piece of glass hit the ground, the twisted circus disappeared, replaced once again by the empty field. The girl breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that she had saved herself and anyone else who might have been tempted to stare into the mirror's eerie reflection. But as she turned to leave, she could hear a faint whisper in the wind. It was the voice of the ringmaster, the twisted master of the haunted circus. He promised her that she had not seen the last of him, that he would return to claim her soul and drag her back into the world of nightmares. The girl left Millfield, never to return again. But she knew that the haunted circus and its twisted spirits would always be with her, lurking in the shadows and waiting for their next victim. And so, the old abandoned circus remained, a silent reminder of the horrors that had taken place there. The residents of Millfield continued to avoid the place, knowing that the twisted spirits of the performers still haunted its dark and dusty halls. But every now and then, someone would venture into the abandoned circus, drawn by its eerie charm and haunted history. And every now and then, someone would find the makeup mirror, still covered in dust and cobwebs, and feel its eerie pull. The haunted circus of Millfield remained a place of fear and terror, a place where nightmares became real and the twisted spirits of the performers waited to claim their next victim.